Okay, we were looking yesterday at the Kol Yisrael Araven Zelazeh, and that emerged from the story of Achan, in which Achan's Avera created repercussions for all of Klal Yisrael. And then we were examining the idea that is, according to Rashi in Maseches Rosh Hashanah, the reason I could be motzi somebody in Kiddush, even though I was Yotzei, is precisely because Kol Yisrael Araven Zelozeh. Meaning there is a general rule that if you're not mechuyev in a mitzvah, you cannot be motzi somebody. But if you are mechuyev in a mitzvah, but you already were Yotzei, you can still be motzi somebody, and it's not a bracha of havdalah, because Kol Yisrael Araven Zelozeh. But then at the very end, I talked about blowing shofar for women, so let me just explain that generally. We know that as a general rule, women are exempt from a mitzvah saseh shazman grama, from positive commandments that are limited in time. Now, this is a rule with many, many exceptions, and in fact, the exceptions might be more than the rule, but let's give a few examples of mitzvahs that women are patur from. They're patur from tzitzis, because we don't wear tzitzis at night. We're not chayav to wear tzitzis at night. They're patur from tefillin, because tefillin is not worn on Shabbos Yom Tov or night. They are patur from lulav and esrog. They are patur from sukkah. They are patur from shofar. They are patur from sfiras ha'omer, because all of those cases are mitzvot saseh shezman grama. There are many, many exceptions. I'll mention the exceptions a little later, but let's take these cases as a rule. So now here's the question. If a woman wants to sit in the sukkah, if a woman wants to take lulav and esrog, if a woman wants to hear shofar, and of course that's actually almost a universal minhag, does a woman get reward for doing a mitzvah that she is exempt from doing? She doesn't get punished if she doesn't, because she's not mechuyeves, but does she get schar? So the Gemara says, avada she gets schar, but she gets schar as an eino mitzvah v'yaisa. Right? There's two levels. A person can do a mitzvah because they're commanded to do a mitzvah, and a person can do a mitzvah that they're not commanded to do, but they want to do it. Now, Chazal tell us there is reward not only for a mitzvah v'yaisa, there is also reward for an eino mitzvah v'yaisa, but Gadol ha-mitzvah v'yaisa, the reward for somebody that's mitzvah v'yaisa, is a greater reward than that of a person who is not mitzvah v'yaisa. Taisus in Maseches Avodah Zarah asks the obvious question. I would think the opposite. If I do something because I have to do it, so why should I get so much reward? All I did was, I did what I have to do. If I do a mitzvah I don't have to do, extra credit, I should get time and a half for overtime. I mean, for carrot, if I understand that only a mitzvah gets punished for a sin, but why should a mitzvah get more reward than an eino mitzvah? So Tosfos says a very fascinating point. Tosfos says that once you're mitzvah, the yetzer hara not to do it becomes much greater, meaning actually it's easier for us to do mitzvahs that we're not commanded. It talks to my ego, it builds me up, I'm special, I'm great, I go beyond the halacha, I'm better than other people. If all you do is what everybody's supposed to do, the yetzer hara kind of pushes you. Again, that's why I point out that in the Reform movement, one of the positive developments has been that more and more people are putting on tefillin. The bad news is almost 100% of them are women, meaning the men aren't putting on tefillin, only the women. So what is this big yetzer hara among non-religious Jews? I mean, I wouldn't say it's a huge yetzer hara. Non-religious Jews have this yetzer hara to put on tefillin, but only women have the yetzer hara. Men don't have the yetzer hara. Right? The answer is, when you're not a mitzvah, you want to go ahead and be special. All right, so be it as it may, therefore, can a woman sit in a sukkah? Can she take lulav and esrog? Can she hear shofar? Of course. I'll mention tefillin is a little interesting. And does she get reward for it? Yes, she does. She gets reward as an eino mitzvah v'yaisa. All of that is pashut, although I'll talk about tefillin in a moment. Now, the big question is, though, if a woman does a mitzvah that she's not chayeves to do, and she gets reward as an Edom Mitzvah V'Yaisa, does she make a bracha on that mitzvah? So this is a huge machlokas between the Rambam and Rabbeinu Tam. The Shitas Rambam is that if a woman does a mitzvah saseh shezman grama, she gets reward. But she vadai cannot make a bracha, because what does the bracha say? Asher kiddishanu b'mitzvosav. God sanctified us with his commandments, v'tzivanu, and commanded us to take lulav or sit in the sukkah. A woman cannot say commanded, because Hashem didn't command. So the shita of the Rambam is that although a woman can and maybe should do a mitzvah saseh shezman grama, she does not make a bracha on that mitzvah. Rabbeinu Tam argues, and Rabbeinu Tam, Rashi's grandson in Tosos and Sukkah, says that a woman can say even Vitzivanu, because Vitzivanu is not referring to her as an individual, it's referring to the Jewish people as a whole. God sanctified Klal Yisrael with mitzvahs. Now, lahalacha, Rav Yosef Karo in the Shulchan Aruch, Kedarko, which he normally follows the Shita of the Rambam. Everyone knows that the Beis Yosef, Rav Yosef Karo, had a certain methodology in Psak Halacha, which is not followed 100%, but is more or less his guiding principle. He looked at three Rishonim as the foundational poskim of Halacha. He looked at the Rif, the Rambam, and the Rush, and he applied a fairly mechanical 2 out of 3 rule, that if any two of them agree, he always is machriya the halacha like 2 out of 3. Now, in truth, that's kind of stacking the deck, and the reason is because the Rush is always going to be the odd man out. The Rambam follows the Rif 95% of the time. So if you go with the rule, Rambam, Rif, Rush, so essentially Rambam is going to win because Rambam is Rif, etc. So be it as it may, therefore, if Yosef Karo paskins, like the Rambam, that women do not recite a bracha on a mitzvah saseh shezman grama, and that is the hanhaga of most Sfardim. Most Sfardim, are, the women do not recite a mitzvah saseh shezman grama. The major exception, I don't want to get into all of this, are Moroccans, because for various reasons, historically, even though we normally say Sfardim follow Rav Yosef Karo, the Moroccans had a Messiah that corresponds to the Ramah. But again, the way the Moroccan Rabbanim explain it, it's not that they're following Ramah. They don't follow Ramah. Ramah is the posek for Ashkenazim. But rather, they come to the same conclusions as Ramah in the Hachra of Halacha. Now we know, just as a little aside, Rav Ovadia was very, very, very upset at the Moroccan community, Moroccan Rabbanim, because Ovadia is a diehard Shulchan Aruch thing. In fact, Rav Ovadia holds Ashkenazim are mechuyev in Eretz Yisrael to follow Rav Yosef Karo, because Sfardim were here first. So if you Ashkenazim move into the neighborhood, you got to follow the sheet of the majority. So he felt that even Ashkenazim should follow the Mechaber, Rav Yosef Karo, okay, but he didn't have a power to do that. But at least Sfardim, he says, how can you betray your heritage? Okay, but be it as it may, Moroccan had a different Messiah in different ways. But the psak of the Mechaber is women do not make the bracha. Ashkenazim follow the Ramah, and the Ramah follows, as usual, Tosfos, Rabbeinu Tam, the Rush, Rabbeinu Tam, and the like, that says that women are mevorches. Right, so this is an important thing. Now, this was actually a problem. Rav Ovadia pointed out that this was a problem of chinuch habanais in Eretz Yisrael, because for many, many years, there weren't that many Beis Yaakovs, there weren't that many girls' schools for Sfardim. So Sephardic girls had to go to Ashkenazi schools, and they were simply taught to make brachos on Zman Garamas, and Therefore, it spread and spread and spread, and Rav Avadja was very, very adamant that for a Sfardiya to make a bracha in a Zman Grama would be a bracha levatala, according to Rav Yosef Karo, and it was absolutely usher. Okay, so that's an important machlokas to keep in mind. Now, so let me now, with this little introduction, let me go back over the last thing I was talking about because I got it in the last minute. Let's assume a man was already yaitse with the kiyas shofar. I'm going to repeat my example. Either he blew it in shul or he listened, whatever it would be. And now he's asked to blow for his wife or for other women, and there's no other man that has to listen. Now, technically, a woman does not have an obligation in shofar. Even it may sound strange to you because all women want to hear shofar, but lemaisa, technically a woman is patur from shofar. It's a mitzvah saseh shazvan grama. But she wants to hear shofar because l'chol apachos she'll get sechar as an einam amsuva v'yisa and the like. Okay, very good. Now the question is, so can I blow shofar for her even though I was yotzei? Of course I can. I mean, it's a kal v'chomer. If I could blow for a man, that's mechayev the araisa in shofar, because of kol yisrael harev and zelazah, I could certainly blow for a woman. But the question is, what about the bracha? So let's look at it both from Ashkenazim and Sephardic standpoint. For a Sephardi, if the woman, let's say, is Sephardi, no bracha is recited at all. The woman doesn't recite a bracha because, according to Rav Yosef Karo, according to the Rambam Shita, women don't recite a bracha in Azman Grama. Well, if the woman doesn't recite a bracha, the man is not going to recite the bracha for her because there's no bracha. So, and here I think it does not depend on the Baal Tokeya. It depends on the woman. In other words, we don't care if the Baal Tokeya is Ashkenazi or Sephardi. If the woman that's going to be Yotzei is Sephardi, there will be no bracha recited at all, unless there's another man who's listening. Okay. Now what about Ashkenazim? Now Ashkenazim clearly would allow the woman to make the bracha. The question is, could the Baal Tokeya make the bracha? So here you have a problem, because really the Baal Tokeya was already Yotzei. And the only heter to make the bracha is Kol Yisrael Arev and Zelazeh, that I'm responsible for your chiyuvim. But the woman doesn't have a chiyuv. So even though like the Ramah, she is permitted to make the bracha, I as a man, whether I'm Ashkenazi or Sephardi, would not be allowed to make the bracha for the woman, because you can't really say Kol Yisrael Arev Zelazeh on something that's not a chiyuv, meaning she's not mechuyeves. So you can't say I have a responsibility to be sure that she's yatzei her mitzvah. So the bottom line, therefore, is if the woman is Sephardi, no bracha is recited at all. If the woman is Ashkenazi, she should make the bracha, and then the Baal Tokeya will blow. Now, if there's a man who is being yotzei with this blowing, then you can have either one. Either he could make the bracha, or the Baal Tokeya could make the bracha to be might see the man, because the bracha is nichlal in Kol Yisrael Arev and Zelzah. Okay, so you got the idea here, yeah.
Did she blow it for herself?
Oh, very good. So the Gemara actually says, beferish, a woman can blow for herself, and a woman can be motzi, although it's not clear what that means, another woman. So women can blow for themselves, yeah.
Just want to make sure I understood that if there's at least one man in the group, the Baal Tokeh can say the bracha, and the women can be considered
Yes,
as part of that?
yes. If there's one man in the group, meaning a boy who is bar mitzvah and the like. Okay, so that's how that works. Yeah.
If in that case, what if the woman made the bracha? Would one of the men still have to take the bracha because she can't?
So that's a very good point. In a case where you have a mixture of men and women, a woman cannot make the bracha because the woman cannot be motzi the man in the bracha because she's not mechuyeves bedavar. So it would have to be a man, either the Baal Tokeya or one of the men who is being yotzei with the kid. You're 100% correct. A woman could not make the bracha for the man. By the way, this is why for Ashkenazim there's a very interesting asymmetry between Kiddush and havdalah. Let me go over this a little bit. We know that Kiddush, even if I made Kiddush 100 times, I can make Kiddush again in my house, because Kol Yisrael HaRav and Zelazah. I could be motzi my wife again or whatever. By havdalah, it's brought down, however, that if once a man was yaitse with havdalah, let's imagine I heard havdalah in yeshiva and I was mechavein to be yaitse with havdalah. I should not make havdalah for my wife. She should make havdalah herself. Now, why is that so? I mean, if I could do Kiddush over and over again, I could do Megillah, I could do shofar, so why can't I do havdalah? What's the problem with my doing havdalah again? So this is a little complicated, but let's go back a little bit. We have this rule that women are exempt from a mitzvah saseh shazman grama. Okay, and we had the machlokes, Rambam and Rabbeinu Tam, if they do the mitzvah, do they make a bracha? But we also know that mitzvah saseh shazman grama has many, many exceptions. In fact, numerically, there might be more exceptions than the rule. And one of the major exceptions to zman grama is the mitzvah of Kiddush. Women are chayavos on a Torah level in the mitzvah of Kiddush. This is both Friday night and Shabbos. Actually, Shabbos day is Drabanan, but whatever. They're chayav in the Kiddush of Friday night, Doraisa, and the Kiddush of Shabbos day. And Yom Tov is the same thing. They're chayav in the Kiddush of Shabbos and Yom Tov. Now the question is, Kiddush is a mitzvah saseh shazman grama, so why should women be obligated in Kiddush? So the Gemara in Brachos and in Psachim says it's a gezeras hakosov because of shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad. Right? In the Aseres HaDibros, in Parshas Yisra, in the fourth commandment, it says, remember the day of Shabbos to keep it holy. That's the source of Kiddush. You remember Shabbos by Kiddush. And in the Eschanan, it says, Shamor, observe Shabbos by not doing malacha. Right? Zachor and Shamor. And Chazal tell us, which one did Hashem say? Hashem said both at the same time. Zachor v'Shamor b'dibor echad. Right? We say this in the Chadodi. You may ask Akasha, how come the first stanza of L'chadaidi says, Shamor v'Zachor b'dibor echad. Now, l'chayre, it should say, Zachor v'Shamor b'dibor echad, because Zachor is first. Zachor is in Yisrael, and Shamor is in V'yeschanan. So why does the poem say, Shamor v'Zachor b'dibor echad? Answer, very simple. The author of L'chadaidi, who lived in the time of the Arizal, was Shlomo Halevi, and the stanzas of L'chadaidi spell out his name. The first letter of every stanza spells out Shlomo Halevi, and then Boi B'Shalom is the end. So Memela, the first stanza of L'chadaidi has to begin with a shin, not with a zayin. So the poet had to reverse the order, not Zachor v'Shamor, but Shamor v'Zachor. Sometimes, that's the answer, meaning it's not going to be some Kabbalistic idea that he was inverting things. That's the simple answer. Okay, so the Gemara in Psachim says that since Shamor and Zachor were said simultaneously, and Shamor is the negative commandment, not to do work, and women for sure have all the negative commandments, so what is our drasha? Anybody who has the negatives will have the positives. Since women are in Shamor, women will be in Zachor, because Zachor v'Shamor b'dibor echad. Okay, so that's why women are chayavos in Kiddush. So now there's a machlokes rishonim. Are women chayavos in havdalah? Because maybe the riboy of shamar v'zachar is only Kiddush, not havdalah. Machlokas. So let's first look at it through Ashkenazic prism. So like Ashkenazim, mimanavshach, the woman herself could say havdalah. You see? Because if she's chayeves, she could say havdalah. If she's not chayeves, she could say havdalah, because even if it's man garama, she's allowed to make the bracha. Now, similarly, if the man has to make havdalah for himself, he could do it for his wife as well. But here's the problem. If the man was already yaitse, and now he's coming home to say havdalah for his wife, so if she's chayeves, he could do it, else kol Yisrael HaRav and zelazah. But if she's not chayeves, for him it would be a bracha levatala. So it's not a bracha levatala for her, because even if she's pater, she could make the bracha. I'm going with Ashkenazi right now. But it may be a bracha levatala for the husband. You see the difference in Kiddush and havdalah. Therefore, the Mishnah brings down that the husband, someone who's going home to make havdalah, should be mechavein, not to be yaitse havdalah in shul, and then he can make it for his wife because he still has to make it for himself. But if he was yaitse b'havdalah, she should make havdalah. Right? It's better for her to make havdalah, because on the tzad that she's exempt from havdalah, it would be a bracha levatala mitzad the husband. That's why, if you look, generally speaking, well, in yeshiva it's not nogeya, but in shuls that have married and single people, the proper hanhag, although again, I'm not sure if the average shul member is even aware of this, but generally you give havdalah to a single person to make, not to a married person, because the married person has to make it for his wife. You'll ask me, let him make it for his wife again? The answer is, because of this cheshbon, that would not be allowed. Now, one other thing. I'm sure everyone has heard of the idea that women should not drink the wine of havdalah, and some people say there's a folk tradition, although it's not in the poskim at all, that she'll grow a beard. That's not the cheshbon. But whatever it is, there are reasons why she shouldn't drink the wine of havdalah. But the answer is pashut, that is only an issue if someone is making havdalah for her. If the woman makes havdalah for herself, either because her husband was yotze or because she's not married, or whatever it is, single, divorced, or widowed, it is a davar pashut ma'od that of course she drinks the wine, and there is no problem. Okay, so the problem of drinking the wine, or the minhag of not drinking the wine, is only when somebody else is making havdalah for her. And again, and it's very, very important, because I can tell you that some women make a mistake here. I mean, sometimes you have a widowed woman or a divorced woman or whatever whose son is not bar mitzvah yet, and she would like her son to make havdalah, and she'll often say, I'm not allowed to drink the wine. I mean, remember, if a katan makes havdalah for a gedola, you're not yotze at all. So it has to be very, very careful about that. Yeah.
What would the Beit Yosef say?
So now let's go back the other way. So now you may ask me, Akash, well, wait a second here. If there is a machlokas, if women are chayavis and havdalah, then a woman couldn't make havdalah herself even, right? Because of the issue, maybe she's petura. So Rav Ovadia says on that it happens to be that Rav Yosef Karo holds women are definitively obligated in havdalah, so there's no problem. Which actually means, paradoxically, her husband could make it. In other words, according to Svardim, either option works. The husband could make it for his wife, even if he heard havdalah already, because she's chayeves, kol Yisrael HaRav and zelazah. Or she could make it herself, because she's chayeves. Right? So according to Svardim, since Rav Ovadia proves from the Mechaber that Nashim are definitively chayeves and havdalah, then it becomes exactly like Kiddush. Rav Ovadia holds havdalah and Kiddush are exactly the same. The husband could do it again and again, or she could do it herself. Masha Enkin, like the Ramah, if the husband was yaitse, his wife would have to be the one that does it, because we treat in halacha that it's a suffix whether women are chayavis and havdalah. So she could do it mimanevshach, but the husband can only do it if he was not yet Yotze. Yeah.
If we go with the idea that women are chayiv in havdalah, are they allowed to eat for havdalah?
Yeah, so l'chayra like this, if a woman is either chayeves, or even if it's a suffix if she's chayeves, a woman cannot eat before havdalah. It's a never pashut mind. Now again, obviously, if she's sick, if she's weak, so good. Men will have heterim too, but it would be the same halacha as applies to a man. By the way, I'll tell you an interesting. Actually, it's a pashut halacha, but it's very, very striking halacha. It's in the Tshuvas Shayol Umeshiv. There's another asymmetry. You're not allowed to eat. Once the time of Kiddush comes, you're not allowed to eat. And once the time of havdalah comes, you're not allowed to eat unless you're already in a meal. You're already in a meal. But there is a big nafkamina between Zman Kiddush and Zman havdalah. When Zman Kiddush comes, you're not even allowed to have water. I'm not allowed to have water until I make Kiddush. Zman havdalah, you are allowed to have water, nothing else, but you're allowed to have water. So we actually are a little makel that Shabbos afternoon, even if you are not having Suda Shalishis, you are allowed to drink water until havdalah. So the situation was this. This was Yom Kippur, and Ne'ilah was running late. By the way, one interesting thing about Eretz Yisrael versus Chutz La'aretz, Rav Bullman, Zechrona Livracha, was a great chashuva Rav who used to be in Ar Sameach. So Rav Bullman once accused the yeshiva world, or Eretz Yisrael, of ruining Ne'ilah. Why is this? Because you might wonder, I'm sure you know the answer, but just to be sure we're on the same page. What do? We finish Ne'ilah, and then we do this excruciatingly long Avinu Malkeinu, in which we say every single thing. And you wonder, well, why couldn't we spend more time on Ne'ilah? Why is Ne'ilah like rushed? And then a long Avinu Malkeinu, let's do a longer Ne'ilah. The answer is, duchening is the culprit, because we duchen by Ne'ilah, and you cannot duchen after Shkia, right? It's your fault. We can't duchen after Shkia, so we gotta finish Ne'ilah, or reach Birchas Kohanim before Shkia. Problem is, the fast is not over for another at least 25 minutes. So Memela, we have to do a fast Ne'ilah where we finish, or we're up to, Birchas Kohanim is pretty much towards the very end of Chazaras Hashatz. So we finish Birchas Kohanim before Shkia, and then we got to schlep it out for another 25 minutes. Now, in Chutz La'aretz, among Ashkenazim at least, where we do not duchen during Ne'ilah, so people are marich in Ne'ilah. Ne'ilah, again, you're not supposed to be marich too much because it's a fast and there may be older people, but we're allowed to go into the night. So the Ne'ilah I remember as growing up, Ne'ilah went into the night. Although even then, as I say, the Chassan Ish says one shouldn't be marich too much. Okay, so the shaila was this. So there was a guy during Ne'ilah that was going into the night, and in the middle of Ne'ilah, the guy decided to start drinking water. So it's mamish. Chazoris Hashatz of Ne'ilah on Yom Kippur. And he's drinking water. So the Shailu Meshiv said the following chiddush. Shailu Meshiv, possibly one great Paiskim, said, when the fast is over, the fast is over. The Isser of eating and drinking is only the general Isser. You're not allowed to eat or drink before havdalah. And since that Isser allows you to drink water, so the Shailu Meshiv actually paskins, as soon as Seisa Kaichavim happens, whatever shir you're going with, all you have are the havdalah restrictions. You don't have the Yom Kippur restrictions. And if it's a havdalah restriction, good, so I can't have a piece of cake in the middle of Ne'ilah. But he says I'm allowed to drink water in the middle of Ne'ilah, because if the only problem I have is havdalah, you're allowed to drink water before havdalah. So it's a funny type of situation. It looks incongruous, like you'd almost feel like people are going to storm the guy or whatever it is. But in the middle of Ne'ilah, he's drinking water. The Shailu Meshiv said it was butcher. Now again, this will not be Nogeya us, because obviously when we're Chazar Shatz of Ne'ilah, it's before Shkia, so obviously the Yom Kippur is still there. Yeah.
Why is the machlokas by havdalah but not by Kiddush? as to whether women are chayav.
No, the answer is Pasha, because the Gemara itself by Kiddush has the drasha of Shamor and Zachar. So the Gemara says women are chayavos in Kiddush. That's a Gemara. The machlokas Rishonim is whether havdalah is nichlal in that Kiddush drasha. Because the question becomes, remembering Shabbos is both when it begins, bichnisasai, uvi yitziyasai, right? So that's the machlokas, right? Yeah, Kiddush there is absolutely no machlokas. I mean, that's a beferisha Gemara, right? So that's the difference in Kiddush and havdalah, yeah.
How come it's the Chabad custom for when you say Kiddush that every male at the table must say Kiddush for their family, or not one do Kiddush?
Yeah. So this is, so let me go over that generally. I mean, it's more of a general question. There are two shitas when you have a group of people. Is it better that one Kiddush be recited for everybody, or each individual recite Kiddush, or at least every family unit recite Kiddush? So, the Graz Shita is, the Shita of the Vilna Gaon, is based on the pasuk in Mishlei, B'rei Vam Hadras Melech, the glory of the king is in a multitude. It is better to have one Kiddush for a large group of people, because that way all the people are working together. It's a glorification for Hashem. The counter argument is a Gemara that you guys have learned. Mitzvah bo yoser mi bishluchai. Doing the mitzvah yourself is better than having an agent do it, and therefore, instead of my being yotze with your Kiddush, it's better for every family to make their own Kiddush, because that becomes mitzvah bo yoser bishluchai. So the question basically becomes, you're balancing two principles, meaning there's mitzvah bo yoser mi bishluchai, there's roivam hadras melech. So the question becomes, which will be the principle that is more dominant? So that's the machlokas. Of course, there's another concern too. I'm not sure if this is what Chabad is based it on. That is, when you have a very, very large group, it's also more likely that individual people are going to miss words. I mean, that's a practical reason why you want to have more kiddushes. In fact, we work that way with Zimmun. People don't realize, the idea that when three people eat together, they're mezamein, rabosai milvin benchen, nevarech, or 10 people eat together, they say Hashem's name. People don't realize what Zimmun really was. The original Zimmun of the Mishnah and the Gemara was when we ate as a group, one person would say the whole benching for everybody else. That was the idea. We benched as a group. Now, that has fallen out of practice. Even when we're mizamein, we still follow the minhag. Everybody does their own benching. And the Mishnah Berurah says that the minhag became everybody does their own benching because it was very hard for people to pay attention to every word that the Mavarech said. So Memela, we don't do that anymore. But ideally, that's what Zimmun is. Zimmun really meant one person benched on behalf of the entire group, and they benched as a unit, a single unit. Yeah.
Two things. Some Sephardim still have the custom where just one person reads it for everyone. But the second is...
The whole benching thing?
Yeah. Some Sephardim I've talked to, they're like, we never had this Masorah of the benching. They just would say thank God or something. When did the Masorah come?
They didn't bench at all? What do you mean? They didn't say benching?
Yeah, they just,
from
their hearts, they would say thank God. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, there is a Gemara. Binyamin the Raya, Binyamin the shepherd, his benching was one line. Baruch Rachamana, blessed is Hashem who gave us this bread. Yeah. So there is a Gemara that says that b'di'evet, you can be Yotzei benching that way. But to enshrine that as l'chatchila, the way you bench, that I think would not be correct.
So
but I have to go check. I mean, number one, I'm not sure if it's an authentic minhag just because people were doing it. Number two, sometimes people mistakenly incorporate heterim for shas hatchak, and they assume it applies in regular situations.
No, I mean, when did the benching, the whole Seder of benching come in place?
No, the Gemara says there's a whole history of this. The first bracha, Havazanes Hakol, was written by Moshe Rabbeinu when the man fell. The second bracha of thanking Hashem for Eretz Yisrael was written by Yehoshua ben Nun when they came to Eretz Yisrael. The third bracha of Rachem, having mercy on Yerushalayim, was written by David HaMelech and Shlomo. And the fourth bracha, Hatov HaMeitiv, is very late. That was added in the aftermath of the Beitar massacre, of Bar Kokhba revolt, in which for 3 years the bodies could not be buried, and then they were buried and the bodies didn't decompose. And Chazal made a bracha, Hatov, that the bodies didn't decompose, and Meitiv, that we could bury them. That was on the 15th of Av. So it's very, very clear that all four brachos are part of the Chid. Now, the Harachamans are indeed later. They're not in the Gemara at all, the Harachamans. Now, it's interesting, the Vilna Gaon had a shita of not reciting the Harachamans on Shabbos. The Vilna Gaon would end with Al Yechasreinu on Shabbos, because he said the Harachamans are not part of Birkas Hamazon. They are bakashos. They are asking God for different things. On Shabbos, you don't ask for requests. So in the Ma'aser Rav, it says that the Vilna Gaon did not say the Harachamans on Shabbos. But some yeshivas in Europe had a minhag that was even more extreme than that. They didn't say the Harachamans at all, even during the week. And I believe Chaim Berlin in New York, to this day, the minhag of the yeshiva is only to end benching with Al Yechasreinu, and the reason is Bittul Torah, if it's not really part of benching. Now again, you got to be careful. You got to be careful with those things. I understand. If the Vilna Gaon were to say he didn't say the Harachamans during the week because of Bittul Torah, the Vilna Gaon measured Bittul Torah in terms of seconds. Okay, so he's not going to say the Harachamans. But all of a sudden, we're on the Madra. Can't say the Harach. And what? Are you going to get pizza on Coney Island Avenue? Bittul Torah to say the Harachamans. These are funny cheshbonos to make, but I understand that was the minhag. So the Harachamans are not really part of benching, and that's why when you're benching on a kos, after Al Yechasreinu, you put the kos down, and technically you're allowed to be mafsik, right? You're not allowed to talk during Birkat Hamazon. But after Al Yechasreinu, you're allowed to be mafsik because Birkat Hamazon is technically finished. Yeah.
Sorry, two questions. So one, if there's a zmanim and you're not part of it, should you respond? So you do respond, but you don't say Sho'achalnu. You say Baruch v'tuvo chayinu. You don't say Baruch Mavorach shebetuvo chayinu, but you don't say anything about achila if you're not part of the group. Do you have to, or it's more like optional?
It's optional. You're not mechuyev. If you're not part of it, you're not mechuyev.
Is there an issue with zmanim, like in terms? I'm sorry, like zmanim, if like people are coming and going, they're sitting at the same table, maybe they're like the restaurants. Like, should they do zmanim like with achila? Like, you got people eating at different times, but then they're all washed.
Yeah, it's a very big shaila. In fact, it may be usher to do so. Meaning to say, if we did not have intention to join together as a group, right? And I just say to the next table, hey, you want to do Zimmun with me?
Right.
It's not part. In fact, the pashas of the halacha is they can't be mitztarif. They have to eat as a group.
Right.
So you can't just tell people after you eat, join me for Zimmun.
Right.
So you shouldn't do that, actually.
Right.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, you have, yeah.
Same table? Same table, people come in.
But they're not connected to each other. Yeah, even at the same table. That's correct. Yeah.
So we putter the woman because of chocolate taking care of the children. That's what I think of the Gemara.
The svara, yeah.
Yeah. So, but then obviously, if a man then is a single child taker, we don't putter the man. It's not actually power.
Yeah. It's a good question. In other words, the Avudraham says that the reason women are exempt from mitzvos aseh shezman garama is because you can't really make her do a mitzvah at a certain time because she may have responsibilities of taking care of children. You can't just say she has to live by the clock. So your question is, okay, well, what if you have a single father who is the primary, exclusive caretaker of the children? Should the father be putter from zman garama? Yeah, so the short answer is that the general rule applies to the general situation. But, it happens to be true.
If lemaisa, he is actually taking care of the children, you have another rule, not Siman Garama, but you have a more general rule, Osek b'mitzvah, Pater min mitzvah. So it may very well be that he will be Pater from Siman Garama, but we're not going to make it a categorical exemption. We're going to make it a situational exemption. Yeah.
So is it good to have people in mind for benching, or should everyone say it on their own?
By Zimmun?
For the brachot.
Well, I mean, our minhag is that the mezamein does not bench for everybody, so everybody has benches on their own. However, a remnant of the old minhag is that people should, in other words, the first bracha, Hazanas HaKol, should be recited out loud. Now, even there you have two minhagim. Some have a minhag that they actually don't say it. They have the mezamein be motzi them in Hazanas HaKol. Meaning, even though they're going to say the rest of benching, they're going to be yotzei with the first bracha. However, that is not the common minhag, even though that may be the better minhag. The common minhag is that we will all say even the first bracha, but we say it in a low voice, so we're kind of saying it along with the mezamein at the same pace. Yeah.
Sorry, just regarding what you said about if so there's three people at a table and two have washed and one isn't eating bread or anything.
Yeah.
One who's not eating bread, what should they do? They can contribute to the mizvot.
Yeah. So here there's a big machlokas lahalacha, meaning like this. The Gemara says if 9 people ate bread and the 10th person didn't eat bread, you can still count him even if he ate fruit or anything, right? So you can add one person who didn't eat bread to make your minyan. That's for sure. Machlokas Rishonim, do you apply that same rule to 2 and 3? What if you have 2 people eating bread and one person ate fruit or vegetables?
If they didn't eat it all, does that make a difference?
No, if they didn't eat it all, then of course you can't count him as a Zimmun. You only have 2 people. The machlokes lahalacha is if he ate something that wasn't bread, can I still count him if a majority ate bread? So that's a machlokes. L'maisa, we do allow that, but if he didn't eat it all, it can't be. Now he can either eat or drink, but not water. He can eat or drink coffee or something like that. Yeah.
You go to somebody's place where for some reason they have the minute to have the person who's leading the benching be motzi.
Is what?
They have the minute
Yeah.
for the person who's leading the Zimmun to motzi everybody. in
Okay.
benching.
Yeah.
Could you rely on the person being motzi, or should you bench by yourself?
No. The truth is, if they're following the original halacha and you're mechavein to listen to every word, that would be very good. That's actually the takana of Chazal. By the way, one quick thing about women. Women are chayav to bench, but they're not chayav in zimun. They don't right. They don't have a zimun, but the Gemara says it is a reshus. 3 women who eat together are allowed to be mezamein. They're not mitztaref with men. You can't take a woman and a man, but 3 women can. So the interesting question is this: what if you have 3 women eating with 2 men, and the 3 women want to be mezamnais? Right? The 2 men can't do zimun. It's only 2 men. So can the 3 women be mezamnais with the 2 men present, and should the 2 men answer? So there's a story, in Brooklyn. There's kind of a very modern yeshiva called Yeshiva Flatbush. It's co-ed. Some of you might know about it, and they always emphasize, the feminist aspects of halacha. So the rabbi there was a very fine person, but kind of a modern rabbi, said, if 3 women want a bench, the men have to answer. So there was a frummer girl in the class, and she says, I don't believe that. So they were planning a trip to Israel. So they were going to have a meeting with Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. And they said, okay, when we get to Eretz Yisrael, let's ask Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Gadol Hador, what a Gadol Hador. So the group comes. They ask Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach if there are 3 women who want to bench. They don't have to bench, but they want to be mezamein. And there are 2 men there. Should the men answer to the women? Can the women do it? Shlomo Zalman said, of course the women can do benching, and the men should answer. So the girl involuntarily said the same thing. I can't believe that. Yeah, she did. Whatever it would be. But that's the halacha. Now, if you have 3 men and 3 women, the men should lead because that's a zimun of chiyuv. A zimun of chiyuv is better than a zimun of rishus. But when you only have 2 men and 3 women, so a Zimmun of Chiyuv there isn't, because there's only 2 men, so the Zimmun of Rishus should be said, and the men should answer. Now, an interesting question I'll leave you with, maybe I'll talk about it next week, is the interesting issue that in our chinuch system, we have inconsistent approaches to Zaman Garamas, meaning some Zaman Garamos we encourage girls to do, and some Zaman Garamos we're neutral, and some Zaman Garamos we're hostile. So, for example, girls are encouraged shofar. Girls are encouraged lulav and esrog, maybe a little less so. Girls are encouraged to sit in the sukkah. When it comes to Zimmun, which is a rishut, actually that's not Zman Grama, but women are patra for another reason, right? When it comes to Zimmun, I would say we're neutral. I mean, no school is going to tell girls you should do it, but they're not going to say it's usher either. And when it comes to tefillin, which is Zman Grama, we're not neutral. We say not allowed to do it. Right? So we'll talk next week a little bit. It's a digression, but I think it's good to go over this a little bit. Why by some exempt mitzvahs we encourage, and some we're neutral, and some we're hostile. We actively discourage. Okay? We'll talk about it next week. Yeah.
Other than havdalah, are there what are the other common time-bound or exceptions to the time-bound?
Yes, there are quite a lot. Hanukkah, candles, reading Megillah on Purim, eating matzah on Pesach, Dalid Kosos on Pesach, really all the Pesach mitzvahs, and Haggadah. Those are the examples in which women are chayavos, even though it's Zman Garama. Yeah.
Is it better for a son to read Kiddush for his family in Hebrew, or the father would transliterate it?
I'm sorry, say it again. Better to read it in Hebrew?
For a son to read Kiddush in Hebrew from the Siddur, or like the father of the family to say it, but he can't read Hebrew, so he would do it transliterated.
Well, translated or transliterated? Well, transliterated is reading it in Hebrew. I mean, he's not looking at Hebrew letters, but he's saying Hebrew words. So reading something through transliteration is halakhically the same as reading Hebrew, because you're saying Hebrew words. So in that case, I would honor the father. The only cheshbon I would have is if the father is not from, and he's offering a choice, it might be better for the child to do it. But not because of Hebrew, but because of Shomer Shabbos. Yeah.
This idea of not grabbing people from other tables to make a Zimmun, would that apply in the heterosexual here as well, where we're kind of eating together, kind of not?
Yeah, it actually would apply. But again, let me point out there's a very simple eitzah. The simple eitzah is, if after I ask you to join in Zimmun, you eat a kazayas of food, so now you've eaten together, meaning each one should eat a kazayas. Doesn't have to be of bread, of some food, after the invitation, and then they bench together.
Regardless of what you ate before.
Yeah,
That creates boom.
That l'chari doesn't create anything. Okay, be well.
Thank you for listening to this Awesome production. To find out more and to partner in our mission, please visit ohr.edu.